Okay, picture this. You're way up high in the mountains of Scotland, and a group of tourists spots an eagle's nest, a really rare one, just perched on the edge of this massive cliff. They absolutely have to have the eggs. They've got the money, they've got the rope. All they need is someone brave enough or crazy enough to go down. So they find a local boy and make him an offer. And it's a good offer, too. We're talking a small fortune. They tell him, don't worry, we'll hold the rope tight. But the boy says no. He looks down at that dizzying drop, he looks at these strangers, and then he looks at this thin rope, the only thing that would be keeping him alive. And in that moment, it all boils down to one single question. Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking this idea of absolute trust. We're going to dive into an ancient text to figure out what it really means to put your confidence in something or someone that is genuinely unshakable. And it all starts with what that boy said next. So the tourists, they don't give up. They keep pressing him. They're like, come on, we're strong enough. The rope is totally secure. But the boy, he gets something they don't. See, in a moment of life and death, brute strength just isn't enough. You need something more. You need character. And that's the answer. Wow, it just reveals this incredible truth, right? The boy didn't trust the stranger's muscles or their money. He trusted his father's character. He knew deep down that his father's love for him was the one thing that absolutely would not let him fall. This is so much more than physical safety. It's about a deep relational confidence. That story is actually a perfect modern-day picture of a really ancient principle from the book of Proverbs. And it's a text that doesn't treat trust as just some fuzzy feeling. Nope. It treats it as a core command for how we're supposed to live. The writer here isn't just saying, hey, memorize these rules. The instruction is to let your heart, your core being, keep or guard the commandments. It's not about just knowing the words, it's about a deep-seated commitment. And the promise attached to it? It's pretty incredible. A long, peaceful life. Okay, so how do you actually do that? Well, it's an active process. First, you have to grab onto mercy and truth and not let go. Then you wear them so everyone can see them, kind of like a necklace. And finally, you write them on your heart so they become a permanent part of who you are. This isn't something that just happens to you. It's a conscious daily choice. And this gets even cooler when you look at the original Hebrew. Mercy is the word chesed, which really means this loyal, steadfast love and kindness. And truth is ameth, which means fidelity, faithfulness. So the instruction is to make God's own character, his loving kindness and his faithfulness, the things that define your life. That's the practical side of trust. You start to look like the one you trust in. And that brings us right to the heart of the matter for today's explainer, because the text presents us with this fundamental choice, a real fork in the road of life. And it's framed as a contrast between two totally different actions, trusting and leaning. Now, I'm guessing you've probably heard this verse before. It's one of the most famous in Proverbs, and for a really good reason. It lays out a powerful choice. Are you going to put your total trust in God, or are you going to rely on your own limited perspective? Let's really break down what trust and lean mean here. So the Hebrew word for trust here is batak, and this is not a fragile, I hope so kind of trust. It's an active confidence. It's what allows you to feel secure, even carefree, because you've placed your hope in something or someone who you know is completely dependable. It's the kind of trust that boy had in his father holding the rope. And where does this trust come from? Your whole leb, your heart. Now, in Hebrew thinking, the heart isn't just about emotions. Think of it more like the mission control center for your entire being. Your mind, your will, your understanding, the whole shebang. So to trust with your whole heart means it's a complete, undivided commitment. No hesitation, no holding back. Now let's look at the flip side. The word for lean is sha'an, and it means to depend on something for support, almost like a crutch. And the text warns us not to lean on things that are, well, temporary and can fail us. Things like our own wisdom, our 5-year plan, our bank account. They're just not built to hold that kind of weight. I mean, think about it like this. Trying to trust God while also leaning on your own understanding, it's like trying to stand with one foot on solid rock and the other foot in quicksand. It's a totally impossible, unstable position to be in. You just can't have it both ways. Sooner or later, that quicksand is going to pull you down. The text is calling for a really decisive choice. Put both feet on the rock. It's an all-or-nothing kind of deal. And this is where it gets really practical, a sort of diagnostic test for our own lives. When trouble hits, a health scare, a financial crisis, a relationship falling apart, what's your first instinct? What's your go-to? What or who do you immediately lean on for support? Is it your own brain power? Or is it something or someone way more stable? But here's the thing. This idea of trust isn't just for the huge, life-altering crises. The text says it applies to all your ways. And that leads us to the next step, which is figuring out what it means to acknowledge God in the day-to-day stuff. Here's the other side of that coin. If you don't lean on your own smarts, what do you do instead? Well, you acknowledge Him. And the promise that comes with that is huge. He'll give you guidance. He'll direct your paths, make them straight. Now, this is so important. To acknowledge Him isn't just a quick nod in His direction. The Hebrew word implies this deep, all-in awareness. It's about consciously perceiving Him at work in your career. It's not considering His perspective before you make a big decision. It's about actively discerning His presence in your relationships. It's this moment-by-moment practice of seeing your whole world through a lens of trust. So, if you do all this, what does a life built on this kind of absolute trust actually look like? What's the end result? Well, the Bible gives us another incredible metaphor, this time from the prophet Jeremiah, that paints a really clear picture of what it looks like. This is just such a powerful image. A life of trust isn't weak or fragile. It's like a mighty tree with these deep roots that have tapped right into a constant, life-giving source. It doesn't depend on what's happening on the surface. It's plugged into a hidden, unending supply of strength. And just look at the fruit of this kind of life. The tree doesn't fear the heat, its leaves are always green, it's not anxious when a drought comes, and it never ever stops bearing fruit. In other words, it is unbelievably resilient and stable no matter what's going on around it. So, at the end of the day, all of this ancient wisdom brings us right back to that cliff in Scotland. True trust isn't some vague, optimistic feeling. It's a conscious, decisive action. It's a deliberate choice you make about who or what you believe is reliable enough to literally hold your life in their hands. So, as we wrap up this explainer, that question isn't just for the boy on the cliff. It's for every single one of us. When you're hanging over the edge, when everything is on the line, who is holding your rope?